Hello, my friends, and welcome to Art Nerds. This is the place where we get to talk to our nerdy friends about their artwork. My name is Michael Bryan, and today I'm here with my good friend, Justin Klett. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, Mike?
I'm doing quite well. I'm excited to hear what you have. First of all, thank you for taking your time and coming out and giving us your time today. First question, always, what's your art? What do you dabble in? What is your creative outlet?
Oh gosh. So professionally I do graphic design. That is my bread and butter. That's generally what I fall back on when I say I'm in the mood to create something. Mm-hmm. I also very much enjoy voice acting and kind of character and world building. I really have fallen into D&D very heavily recently. We're in a campaign together.
Yes.
And that is one of 3 different groups that I am in currently. It's becoming a problem. But when I say I like creating things, it really is just like almost the act of creation that really gets me going.
Well, so is there a common thread through your artwork, through your like graphic design versus your world building and character creation versus anything else? Is there, or is...
I don't necessarily, I like, okay, now exploring this in real time. Okay.
No, that's fine. I mean,
there kind of is a little bit of a common thread there. I really do enjoy a lot of like, in the best way, I enjoy a lot of like stereotypes and tropes, and not stereotypes. That's the wrong word, but tropes and kind of retro feeling stuff visually. And I'm like a sucker for like kind of pulpy nonsense. And so anytime I can lean on, well-established tropes in character building to bring a little bit more dimension to a character, anytime I can bring in, traditionally recognized styles into my design work, whether it's my own projects or if I can manage to put in a little flavor in something I'm making to actually go out into the world for where I work, that's always a plus.
Right. Do you see a distinction between, like you said, what you make to go out into the world versus something that doesn't go out in the world?
Okay. That's a fair point. When I'm making something for work, I have been instructed to make something. And so the content is already decided for me, and I just get to decide what coat of paint I put on it.
Okay.
And so when I get a lot of wiggle room to like really, really decide how I want to paint this, I really do enjoy it. There was I work for the University of Illinois, the Extension Office, Communications Division, and I made it sound way more official than it actually is. University of Illinois Extension Communications. That's where I work. And last year I got to do some social media graphics because we were doing reminders for now, during the summer, it's like, now is the perfect time to start on your lettuce because then it will be ready to harvest by this time, and, tomatoes or what have you. And I really got free reign to do whatever I wanted. So I kind of did some like Victory Garden reminiscent graphic style stuff.
Like World War II kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
And I got to do a little bit of that. And that was a lot of fun for me to just kind of let loose and explore with that and really try to solidify a style for these that I had always wanted to try, but never had the opportunity to really practice with professionally.
So you got the chance and you took it.
I absolutely took it. And it was a lot of fun.
How'd it turn out?
They turned out really, really well. As far as I know, the engagement didn't necessarily skyrocket, but they got some pretty good numbers on them.
Okay, good.
And I got good feedback from my coworkers. They said, they really enjoyed them. And it was from what I understand, it was kind of a nice blip in the social media schedule of like some different looking stuff. But coming from a department that is always trying to put out different looking stuff. So
right.
It was, I had a lot of fun with it.
So it was a success for you at the very least.
Personally, it was a rousing success.
Perfect.
Yes.
Now, I think it's interesting because my daughter is also in the graphic design world.
Mm-hmm.
And do you struggle with commercial art versus personal art, or is there a difference for you? Or, and again, this might be a big question.
I think it's one of the questions in the design world is like, is design art? Is something that you make for the purpose of commerce truly art, sort of thing? And I don't know if I have the authority to say one way or the other. I do think it is, though. I
think you absolutely have since you do it, you have the authority to say.
Okay. Well, in that case,
I'm
yes.
giving you permission.
I think it can be art. I think there is absolutely some graphic design out there that is not art at all. And I think there's some design that reaches the mainstream market that is completely and utterly soulless. As I think in in the fine art circles, there's probably some paintings stuff that hits market that is absolutely soulless as well. But I do think that there is room for design that is artful and does express what you want it to. And I think that there is art out there that does that. Or design out there.
So for you, the idea of art that touches somebody or makes a connection versus art that you say is soulless is what I'm getting from you is that argument isn't necessarily exclusive to the graphic design world.
No, not at all. I think it's a very long Bill Watterson quote, but one snippet is that one of the tough things about life is that there will be 1,000,001 ways for you to sell yourself out in creating your art. And it's a kind of your job to make sure that you don't do that for your own sake.
Okay. Yeah. It reminds me of I read a book about Jim Henson's early years before he got super, super popular. Mm-hmm. But the book boiled down to was he was very good about creating certain things to be sold, i.e. The Muppets were meant to be TV and to be sold. But there were certain things that he did that was just this weird filmmaking art that he did solely for himself.
Absolutely. There is some stuff that I have made that is, it paid my bills. I'm not proud of it. It will never reach my portfolio. I will never feel comfortable putting it out there and saying, this is my work. But I did it. And it was enough to be sold, but it wasn't enough to express really what I wanted to express.
Okay. Yeah. That's interesting. Now what kind of things do you dabble in art-wise that are not professional graphic artists, or what kind of other, because you mentioned several here before we got started and as we got started, and I'm curious to know about all of them.
I have kind of a half dozen projects that I'm all constantly working on and running out of energy and abandoning and coming back to and cycling through and that sort of thing. There is some stuff that I would like to be able to sell in the future, but I just need to kind of getting around to making it. But it's more like I'm crafting the message, I'm making it. And so it's a lot more of like personal style choices and personal message expression and that sort of thing.
Sure. But things like what? You mentioned character building, world creation. You also work with Kudo.
Yes, the Champaign-Urbana Design Organization. I should also mention, I'm the president of the Champaign-Urbana Design Organization. They would want me to plug that. I mean, I'm working on a series of D&D themed posters right now that I'm wanting to kind of put out there at some point, and that's just kind of expressing my love for D&D.
I was going to ask, is this for something specific or just something you're just hammering out?
It's really just something I'm hammering out. It's a style that I've never really gotten a chance to work in before, and it's a property that I really enjoy, and it's really just kind of expressing, in some ways, the kind of the silliness of D&D and how broken it is, in like if you were to actually apply real world mechanics to it, sort of thing.
Oh yeah. It's a game.
Yes, absolutely.
You mean like the high fantasy style you want to play with, or?
Trying to decide whether I want to kind of tilt my hand and put that out there, because I'm really far from getting the posters done. But it's a series of D&D posters in the style of like WPA posters, Federal Art Project sort of stuff. Kind of like those really retro, like, Visit Sprawling Montana sort of posters, and like, Grand Canyon,
interesting,
Visit, all that sort of stuff. And there were some that were like, visit these locations, but then also there's a subsect of them that are like just overall safety posters, and it was like, hey, wear goggles around machinery, and there were some that were like, if you're going around a curve, be careful because deer could jump out at you. And,
right. So,
stuff like that.
So, for example, what would one of your ideas? Because I've got ideas in my head.
I mean, the first
I want to hear from you first.
The first one I've nailed down is a poster that says, let's see, I'm trying to remember the exact numbers, but I think it's a poster that says, "Fireball can and will damage anything within a 20-foot radius. Cast with caution." And I'm working on ideas for others. I think there's one I'm tossing around, and it's like, reconnect with nature. Try wild shape today. And
as a D&D geek, I think that's hysterical.
Yeah, but just weird stuff like that, and do something about key point. I'm wanting to do one for kind of each D&D class.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just like, I'm having a lot of fun with that, and that is way more illustrative than really any large scale project I've taken on before. And so I'm having to push myself because illustration is really one of my weak points.
Okay.
I can do a lot of things with typography, but as far as like making my own illustrated elements, that is a struggle. And so that's part of what's taking the time, is me kind of figuring out how I want to illustratively portray what I want to portray.
Okay. Is your background primarily in digital then? Or is it, like you said, illustrative? Or is this just different tools you use? Is it even part of the discussion?
Could you clarify? How do you mean?
Again, this might be me being naive about your work, because I have very little contact with it. From what I understand, probably 90% of graphic designers work digitally. Mm-hmm. And so these D&D posters you're working on, do you want to create them digitally? Do you want to take them with more traditional tools, paints, pencils, that kind of thing?
I got you. I am creating them digitally, but I'm doing so. Like, for the first time, I'm really I'm using my iPad and the stylus with it, and I'm really going in and using hand painted shading on stuff, and I'm really going in and putting in hand drawn elements in there, but in a digital format.
Right. So That might be a discussion for another day. Is painting digitally, is it an oxymoron or not?
Oh, I don't think so at all. I think it's the same strokes. It's the same kind of pressure techniques and everything like that. Okay. You will get the Puritans that are like, but you can't see the texture, and that's half the thing. And it's true. Yeah. Well, okay. So yeah, that comes
Go for
back,
it.
that just comes back to the argument of whether, commercial art is art or not, because it's, is the thingness of it the soul of it? And, if it's mass produced, is it sucking the soul out of it?
That's a good question. I should turn that back on you. But, I mean, if you're creating anything, there's got to be some soul in it.
I think there is.
I mean, regardless of content or reason, I don't know.
I mean, this is why it's a huge discussion. It's just like because there are, so many arguments for yay, so many arguments for nay. I think there are people who value their skills in the traditional kind of fine arts mediums, and they, not necessarily for a sense of superiority thing, but they worked hard to get those skills, and they want to hold them to value, and they should. But I think a lot of those skills can translate over to digital, and I think that if you're creating using digital, it's no less using.
I mean, you're still studying and you're still perfecting your techniques.
Yeah.
Just a different set of tools.
Absolutely.
Okay, that makes sense then.
I mean, I talked to a friend of mine also on the Kudo board, Marcus, and he was talking to me about, how he's not necessarily feeling he was having a moment where he's like, I don't know if I'm a designer because I do, photography and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, it's all the same thing. Unity, balance, drawing the eye, color theory, all this sort of stuff. It's all those same like basic elements, no matter what you do. And, if you're using photography, you're using a rule of thirds, but you're also, you're creating a composition in frame. If you're designing, in Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, whatever, you are creating a composition in a frame, and you're, so it's all just the same principles applied over everything.
So it's all art.
It's all art.
It's all art.
It's all art. It all takes the same basic skills to kind of see what you want to make and then make it happen.
Nice. I like that idea.
Thank you.
Okay, what about your art? Regardless of where it comes from, I like asking this question. What turns you on about it? And I use that phrase very specifically.
Okay. Well, could you expound on that so I can?
I don't know if I want to.
Okay.
But I mean, what excites you about what you do? Because I know when I get involved with a project and there's something I want to do, I can sit at the workbench and I can lose hours because I'm focused and I'm doing it and I'm doing it and I'm not conscious of making the decision to do it. I'm just like, oh, I passed something in the workshop. I sit down and said, okay, I got to figure this out. And then I'm late for something. It's that kind of, it turns, that kind of building weird stuff turns me on, making something that people are going to go, holy cow, what did you do? What kind of things turn you on about what you do and what you want to do? And
I mean, it's definitely, I think it's definitely like the problem solving aspect of it, because like, as I'm working through something, if it's something that I have to make, or it's something that I just have an inclination to make, I know that in the end, I have a rough like list of check boxes that this design needs to hit. It needs to have this message. It needs to contain these images, whatever. And so from there, it's just puzzling everything together and, reshaping. Okay, well, if I lay out the text this way, it doesn't quite flow, so I'll need to tweak it over here, do this, and shove this over this way, knock this down. And so as I'm working through it, I'm hitting these little spots and I'm solving micro puzzles as I'm going through.
Okay.
And so it's just like ding, 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 ding. The, lights are going off in my brain. And that feels really good because solving problems kind of gives that little mini chemical dump in the brain. And so I can just kind of keep chasing that chemical dump through whatever problem.
Now, is that what kind of attracts you to Dungeons and Dragons then as well? Because it almost seems like and I don't mean to sound disparaging. That process sounds very mechanical to me because I don't work mechanically. I don't work organized. I'm not that kind of artist. I'm a hit and miss improv, whatever works. Okay. I don't solve problems in that very meticulous way. That sounds very foreign to me. But does it sound mechanical to you, or does it feel mechanical, or is that just the way you do it?
There are some aspects that are mechanical. There are certain parts of the project where, like, if I wanted to, I could just, plug in a podcast or something, kind of shut off my brain halfway and just kind of autopilot through because I know what I need to do.
Right.
And then there are certain parts like brainstorming and researching and kind of testing out, different things where I want to be fully engaged.
Okay, that sounds very different then.
Yeah.
Okay.
But as to whether or not that's why I'm into Dungeons and Dragons, that's partially why I'm into Dungeons and Dragons. The other part is the escapism, because of the world that we live in. Flying away to a fantasy realm where you can kind of solve the problem with a giant hammer and a can-do attitude. There's something very appealing about that.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Do you have any heroes or muses? Is there inspirational, any kind of people that guide you, whether they be dead, alive, whether you've met them or not? Do any of these people exist for you?
Hang on, there are a few people. When I was in school, I looked a lot to a designer named Saul Bass for inspiration for visual style and that sort of thing. He did a lot of work with Otto Preminger and Alfred Hitchcock. His style is very minimalist, and it always felt to me kind of like shapes cut out of construction paper and then compiled together. But he's done like a lot of very famous posters. He did a lot of like credit sequence. Really, he invented the artistic credit sequence.
Really?
Yeah. He if you remember, It's a Mad World.
Vaguely, but yeah.
Yeah, he did the intro for that. He did the intro for, I think, Vertigo, and then he also directed the scene in the middle of the film where Jimmy Stewart is having the Vertigo attack, and so he directed the visuals for that. He's honestly just worth looking up. But visually, he's kind of someone I glommed onto very early on and still look to occasionally for inspiration. But he has passed on. Someone who is still very much around, who I look to, is someone I started following on Twitter years and years ago, named Mitch Goldstein. He's a design professor at the Rochester Institute of Technology in New York. And he has I don't know if it's a unique attitude toward design. It was a very unique attitude. It was a very different attitude from what I was getting from my professors at the time. And it was very much centered on, you need to be, it doesn't matter whether or not you have the skills. It does matter, but really you need to focus on being the best you and putting the best you out there and that sort of thing. One of the things he tweeted out years ago, I think it was 2017, he tweeted it out. And I printed it out and I have it like on my desk at work. And it just says, "Dear design student, it doesn't matter how talented you are, or it doesn't matter how good you are. No one wants to work with a talented asshole." And I have internalized that. And so that really shapes how I interact with clients, how I interact with coworkers, how I approach problem solving, because I want to be someone who people want to work with. And so that, keeping that in mind kind of shapes my approach to everything.
Now, when you were in school at university, you were not taught this, just taught to be not how, you said that it was a different approach than what you were getting from your own professors at the time. Or was it even, I'll let you answer.
I don't want to throw anybody in particular under the bus, so I'm not going to name names.
No names.
There was an attitude in the department of like, I wasn't making stuff to make the best things. I was making stuff to appeal to the design inclinations of the professorship. So I wasn't making things that maybe necessarily I wanted to make. And when I was making the stuff I wanted to make, it maybe wasn't meshing with what my professors wanted to see. And so instead of learning my own style and figuring out my own style, I kind of learned what they wanted to see. And that's what I started making. And so it's taken me kind of a long time to break out of that. And I still fall back on it very often. But it's taken me a long time to kind of get confident enough to start kind of nudging out and exploring, well, what is it that I want to make? What is it that, what is my style? What is my voice in the realm of visual design?
It sounds like that might be a bit of a struggle working with clients who have very specific ideas versus clients who, I don't know, have no idea.
I do like a client who has an idea, because any amount of starting point is better than being told, I don't know, because that really does, in some ways, that really does kind of hit personally for me. That hits that area of like, well, I don't know if what I want to make is necessarily going to be what others want to see. So anytime that anybody gives me some place to start, that's great. I have worked with clients who will just sit on my shoulder and ride me the whole way. And I do not feel like a designer in those moments. I have basically landed on the term software pilot for situations.
That's interesting,
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it really occurs to me that if they had my knowledge, if they had my ability to use the software sort of thing, they would be doing this themselves, but that's their limitation. And so they really just need someone who can fulfill their exact vision.
Right.
And those are nowhere near as fulfilling.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
So are you getting to a point where you're pushing your own aesthetic? Not really. Pushing is probably the wrong word, but being able to apply your own aesthetic in these projects where You were given a little bit of rain?
I'm working on it. That was the Victory Garden stuff. That was me kind of saying, well, I like textures. I like things that I like retro looking art. I like, things with aesthetic to them.
Right.
And so if I can apply that in certain jobs, I am probably going to, because that feels fun. That feels a lot more fun, and it's a lot more rewarding. And that's what I'm doing with my own art. When I get the idea to make something, I will generally try to apply some sort of, and just kind of cycling through different styles and, seeing what lands on what sticks
Right.
for me. And right now, kind of doing that WPA poster style is a lot of fun. And that's firing off a lot of very happy things in my brain when I'm doing that.
And that sounds like exactly what you should. That's what I tell my kids. Where's your brain right now?
Mm-hmm.
That's what you need to do.
Yeah.
So that sounds like a lot of fun. I actually want to see these when you have anything mocked up or anything. So because it sounds hysterical. It sounds wonderful.
I'm having a lot of fun with it, and it's the struggle right now is having the time. So in order to do this, I have to have time and I have to have creative energy, and so it's finding the place where I have both of those at the exact same time that I can work on those.
I think that's a common struggle, though.
Mm.
I know that's me too. Like there are days when I'm ready to work, but I have 10 minutes before I have to be somewhere. And then there are times I've got days and I cannot get my brain to focus on anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate that. Here's a question.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any other art form or any other hobby or any other kind of thing that you would like to try that you never have? Anything you'd like to dabble in? Or
I would love to try blacksmithing.
Really?
Yes, I've done very specifically. There was a class at college called 3D design, and it basically kind of threw you into a sandbox where you could kind of cycle through a bunch of different physical mediums. So we did clay and plaster, wire, cardboard, wood. I think somebody at one point actually did some welding stuff for an assignment, carpentry, and so like you could really just work with your hands and do stuff. And I absolutely loved that class. And I would love to be able to work with my hands more. And I will sometimes just go down YouTube rabbit holes of blacksmithing videos, and it looks like so much work. It looks so exhausting, but it also looks so cathartic to be able to like shape these these metal blocks into whatever you want, and do so through means of extreme violence. And that looks a lot of fun to me.
Burning stuff and reshaping.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Do you like working with your hands?
I really do. I haven't had...
In that kind of very visceral kind of way?
It's not something I get the opportunity to really do very often. And that's mostly due to limitations of workspace.
Sure.
At school, there was just this giant room with these rough wooden tables where you could pop clay and spill stuff and gouge them and do whatever you wanted. It was a very destructible workspace, and it was made for that. But I rent. And so that's a problem.
I still need to eat off my dining room table.
Exactly. I have carpet. I can't throw clay on a carpet.
I can't be lighting fires in here.
Yeah. So it's, when I get the opportunity, I love to be able to work with my hands. And so someday, at some point, if given an opportunity to, spend a day doing that, I would love to try that and kind of, given.
So what would be your first project?
Honestly, what would be my first project?
That first hunk of metal that said, I did this.
I don't know, probably something very, very simple. Like, I think some, beginner projects are like crafting a knife out of like a railroad spike, because it's hammering it out and then it's grinding and shaping and that sort of thing. I'd love to try that. I would love to do some like decorative twisting and crafting some like wrought iron things, and just, I don't know. I would even love just getting a hunk of metal and just getting to beat the hell out of it and just just see what I could do, and test the limits of the material and
just to see how
just see what happens. Yeah,
that's great.
Find out how it feels when you hit it when it's good and hot. Find out what happens when you hit it when it's too cold and it cracks. Just really run the gamut and learn all of the corners of it.
Interesting. Do you like working with like multiple? Well, I guess you do with your class you just described, and you had a good time with learning the materials.
Yeah,
that's interesting. I think I share that with you. The more materials I know how to play with, the more fun I have. And I got a like 3 pounds of casting sand for Christmas.
Oh, wow.
I haven't done anything with it yet, but I got plans, baby.
Oh, boy.
And I got about a half a pound of pewter down there, so I'm going to try something.
Good luck.
You want to come over? Play?
I would love to, sure. That sounds like a blast.
Give it a shot. Okay, is there like an art form you would never want to try? Or is there one such even on your radar?
What is never want to try? I don't know if there's something that I would never want to try. There are some that I've done where it's very obvious very quickly that it's like, this is not my thing. This is not necessarily what I'm good at. I enjoy the opportunity of trying things, but it's not necessarily, this is not where I'm feeling my bliss right now.
Right.
But I don't think that there are any that I'm necessarily averse to on their face.
Okay, so what was the things that you've tried that you decided, okay, I'm not this kind of artist?
I mean, it's a performance art. So, but like cosplaying, I've done a little bit of that. Like, with my fiance, we go to cons pretty much every year, and they really enjoy dressing up and doing cosplay, and they really get into it. That's really where they find their joy and their bliss. And when I do it, I am just filled with anxiety, and I'm intensely self-conscious about my appearance. And so dressing up my appearance and then putting it out there as the main thing really just does not make me feel comfortable. And I know that's not the point. The point is to express yourself with the character and have fun and enjoy it in the fandom space with other people, but I just can't get past that roadblock.
That's fair. I mean, I'm a big guy, so I get,
yeah. I get that's really where my hang up is like I am a large man, and
you wear it better than I do. Let me
well, debatable, but
okay. I think this will be my last question. But where can we see more of your stuff? Where can we find more of your artwork?
I post as I feel comfortable doing so on Instagram. I'm at Klett Designs on there. JKLETT Designs on Instagram. While you're following me, please also follow at the Kudo, because in addition to, seeing stuff that I have a hand in doing there, not necessarily visually, but like events and that sort of thing, we also just try to highlight a lot of area designers and artists. And so if you're interested in checking out more of that, we would be happy to
At the Kudo, is that Instagram or is that?
Instagram and Facebook.
Okay. Do they have a website?
Yeah, thekudo.org.
The Kudo, THECUDO.
Yes, CUDO.org.
Okay.
Yes. And then I'm also at jklettdesigns.com.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you very much for spending some time and taking your time out of your day.
Thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Good. Anything else you want to say? Anything we didn't get to?
I don't think so. I'll just reiterate. Doesn't matter how good you are. No one wants to work with a talented asshole. Be nice. Be kind. That's the number one thing.
And we'll leave it with that. Thank you.